Our first presenter today is RiskAnalytics.
Good morning. Can you hear me? My name is Brian Branner. I represent a cybersecurity firm out of Kansas City called RiskAnalytics. We're happy to have this opportunity to speak for you today. I'm going to start off by apologizing for what I'm about to start this off with, kind of on a dark note, but when we first learned about the Gigabit Challenge, we were really excited about it, but it quickly came to our attention that someone who might be more excited about this than us is the cyber community, the cyber criminals, hackers. Quite frankly, we think this fat Google Gigabit pipe that we seek to install might create even more opportunity than a lot of the things you're going to hear today. If you've read the paper, paid attention to international press, legislation, and process, you see that the cyber war is already upon us. Online bank heists, data breaches, identity thefts, they cause major financial losses to companies every day, and this problem is only going to get worse. It's now estimated that 12 to 15% of all computers out there are part of a botnet. A botnet is that automated robotic arm of cyber criminals. If you take a look at some of the headlines out there, I think that what's most interesting is not that these hacks occurred, but if you look at who they occurred against. Companies like Epsilon, Barracuda, RSA, and last week Symantec, who you might know as Norton Antivirus. They all experienced their breaches. Even Google got hacked. Sony, I thought that was interesting because what Sony told me is that it's not a matter of how much money you throw at your security. And now Stratford down here at the bottom, I think this one was one of the most interesting because you typically think about who is a victim of a data breach, and it's those that typically hold data, hospitals, financial institutions. Stratford was a right-wing think tank, still is, but in this case, the hackers dragged the CEO through the mud, publicly embarrassed him, sent emails to customers like it was coming from the CEO. What they proved is that hacktivism is alive and well and willing to bring an organization to his knees just to make a political statement. So think about this. These are the security leaders. If they can't protect their own businesses, then how are they supposed to protect you? Look, it's not all their fault. They're doing good things. Antivirus, firewalls, these are all very good things and necessary, but they're just outdated tactics to address a modern problem. Notice the Barracuda at the top, defense in depth. What that really means is there's no one solution to cybersecurity. It takes a lot of layers. We're going to get to that. So now, Kansas City's been selected as a test place for Google's Gigabit fiber network. It's going to be brought to thousands of homes and businesses. This is very exciting news. And today, after this RiskAnalytics presentation, you're going to hear about 18 other companies that have a lot of great fun and ideas on what to do with this new fat pipe. But make no mistake and understand, this is going to create a tremendous opportunity for the cyber criminals. So think about this. We've all played Where's Waldo? Think about this as current bandwidth. It's kind of easy to find Waldo. Anybody not see him? Okay. Now you want to move to a gigabit pipe. It's not dissimilar. You're taking the speed of the internet from 65 miles an hour on a highway to 500 miles an hour and increasing that highway from 2 lanes to 300 lanes. It's just going to be more difficult to find them and catch them. They're going to thrive unless we do something about it. Fortunately, RiskAnalytics has a solution. It's called the AutoShun. We've got a new defense in-depth layer of security. This will help keep the cyber criminals' army of botnets off the internet. We can install AutoShun like this in any home or business, much like you'd think of a cable modem or your cable box. AutoShun is currently sold as a service that effectively prohibits a computer or network from communicating with our proprietary list of 3 to 3.5 million known bad guys. Crimeware command and control centers. That's what we do, is we track those. Now, shunning is a very different and interesting way to kind of prevent crime, different than the firewalls or the antivirus. What shunning really means is that when a Crimeware Command and Control Center is trying to communicate with your computer through their army of botnets. What they essentially do is ping your computer. We look at it much like caller ID. We see who's trying to ping your network, and we shun that communication, which means we effectively throw their communication in the trash. We don't respond to it. If you think of it like caller ID, we simply don't answer the phone. We don't even let the answering machine pick up. By doing this, we essentially turn off many of the bad parts of the internet. And again, our secret sauce is our ability to manage this list. We track them by IP address. This is something we've been doing for over a decade. We generate this list from hundreds of global sources. We run them through algorithms to make sure they're accurate. We typically don't keep a bad IP address on our list for more than 10 days. And we pump out this code onto, there we go. We pump out this code on each of these AutoShuns about every 5 minutes. So that list is up to date and accurate. We even give them a report every morning so they can see what we blocked and who it was from. Was it Zeus traffic? Was it Configure? Was it the Russian business network? RiskAnalytics has been aggressively tracking cyber criminals for over a decade, and we've become one of the authoritative sources on botnets and online crime syndicates. We have almost zero competition in the shunning space. It is our code, we developed it, and we have strategic relationships in place to ensure it stays proprietary. We are profitable, we have zero debt, and we have manufacturing and distribution plans in place to scale globally. Again, this is commercially available now. AutoShun is one of only 3 business segments at RiskAnalytics. We also have a cybersecurity training awareness because you also have to manage that human element. And we also have cyber liability insurance. As a cybersecurity firm, I will tell you there is no perfect or one solution. We're dealing with some of the smartest and most brilliant criminal minds, and they will find a way in. Insurance is a great way to transfer the balance sheet. We've accomplished a lot of our success through 2 of our exclusive relationships with companies like AIG and Lloyd's of London. Now, I know Kansas City is excited about this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I know we are. The world will be watching, so I hope that we do it right. I hope we're providing Kansas City with the clear pipe, not one that's polluted with crimeware. AutoShun can be available for the Gigabit fiber network in days, not weeks, and with very little capital. It's affordable, it addresses a consumer demand, and it's easy to install. Now, I'd like to take any questions on this, and with that, I'd like to bring out Tom Curry. Tom Curry is one of the founders of RiskAnalytics. For lack of a better terms, he's our tech guy who understands and actually wrote the code. Questions?
Our criminal justice system is based on the premise that people are innocent until they're proven guilty. At minimum, that acknowledges that people make mistakes and that apparent criminality is not always culpable criminality. So I'd like to ask you, who decides who gets shunned? How does that happen? What's the appeals process, if any? And what other sites, what's the corollary damages, if you will? What sites that aren't criminals happen to get blocked just by virtue of sharing an IP address?
That's a great question, collateral damage, and that's something that's important to us. I'm going to let Tom talk about, really, because we're talking about the shun list, where does that data come from? You're concerned about collateral damage, a good guy ending up on the bad list. Tom, do you want to address that question?
Sure.
Or where it's a matter of judgment whether there actually is criminal behavior or not.
Of the addresses that we put on the shun list, they're backed up by evidentiary data from sensors that we have deployed in the field. And we have analysts who actually look at each one to ensure that, yes, this is evidence that this machine is being operated by a remote botnet or it's being controlled by malicious parties. We publicize the list for anybody who wants it. Most of these addresses are outside the US, and there's no jurisdictional authority that can bring them down in a reasonable period of time. We're not suggesting that we are the judge and so forth, but for people who choose to play on the safe side, we publish a list that we recommend you don't talk to, as though it were mugshots of 3.5 million criminals, and the computer can tell you, hey, this guy is guilty of such and such in the past, and now he's standing at your door, knocking at the door. What do you want to do? We make the decision for those people who choose to sign up with us that we will hide you from those people. They literally, with shunning, they cannot find you. We've been doing this for 10 years. You mentioned collateral damage. There are things where collateral damage prevents us from being effective, and that is like the shared IP addresses at GoDaddy and things like that, in which case when we see that evidence at these shared addresses, we have to send emails to GoDaddy or whomever and appeal to the authorities to have these people taken offline or have this site taken out. And they're usually pretty good about it. But for the ones outside the US, Eastern Europe, things like that, where there is no rule of law, there is no criminal justice system in place, this is the best we can do given what we've got to work with. Does that actually answer your question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What's your plan for marketing and distribution?
Well, we've got a plan in place, and like I said, AutoShun's commercially available now. We run it through a number of direct sales to companies. We work through technology VARs, which we call value-added resellers. We're giving them another new layer of protection to sell their existing group of clients. We also deploy it through insurance sales, through the brokerage community. We view this as a form of risk management for the cyber liability insurance marketplace. If we were to partner with Google, I think that would be an added service that Google or whoever runs that fiber can sell as a cross-selling opportunity, simply like you have the option to buy a cable box, whether that might be a DVR, whether that's an HD box.
We have time for one more question.
How many competitors do you have?
I don't believe that we have really any competition in the shunning space. Understand that shunning is a concept that's been around for a long time. You can shun on an existing firewall now, but we use a Cisco. On a Cisco, which is a very good firewall, you can only put about 1,000 shuns on there. Someone's got to manually do that. We give away that many on our pro bono site, AutoShun.org, but somebody's got to manually configure and put those on the firewall as they change. The nice thing about AutoShun is we're putting 3 to 3.5 million, and that updates every 5 minutes. So we're keeping the hottest list of all of them. We can't find anybody else that's doing anything close to that.
Thank you very much to RiskAnalytics.